Hello everybody and welcome back to Middle-earth and another video update for Wainriders, and today we are looking at the Eotheod. These are the refugees, exiles, relocated people once of Rhovanion who were compelled to leave their homeland in the face of the Wainrider invasion and settle in the vales of the Anduin River, where they remained as a thorn in the side of the Wainriders for the 100 years or so that they remained in that part of the world. The Eotheod would go on to become the ancestors of the Rohirrim, as many of you no doubt know, and to that end there are some strong similarities between the units and the culture, stylings of those factions. So let's take a look at some of these units and then we'll get into the battle replay. Now, I have been experiencing one of those replay problems where the result of the battle does not carry across the different replays. So I actually had to fight this battle multiple times before I could get a victory. This is we're matched up against the Western Horde, and we had a hell of a time pulling off a victory against them, which is all as it should be. I think the Horde should be a fittingly intimidating faction. But frustratingly, I tried replaying the battle. And it was, instead of a victory, it was undecided, and then we replayed again. I sort of ran the replay again, and it showed a defeat, so I don't know what's going on there, but it doesn't really matter. We're looking at the units here today, and we will certainly do that, no matter how the replay decides the battle ended up. So the first unit up for display here is the Rovanian Outlaws. These are a unit that you can find in Rhovanion, so in the eastern part of, or east of your starting territory. So this will be something you can get over in the land east of Mirkwood, essentially. These are a skirmish unit. You don't really have any of these. You only ranged troops you have for infantry are the Woodman bows, essentially. And so these guys give a bit of versatility to your infantry lineup. Other infantry troops, so here are those Woodman bows. I brought 3 to this fight after trying with just 2, and I think having 3 really does help. Having more archers is often a good thing in this mod, and so these guys are going to be a cheap and lightly armed infantry archer. As you can see, they are not terribly well equipped for melee. They do carry axes for that role if they do find themselves in trouble, but they're not going to be looking for trouble. They're going to be hanging back in the woods and maybe pulling off an ambush, but mostly firing their bows. For infantry melee troops, your first tier is going to get you Woodman Spears, and these are similarly lightly armed guys with just spears, shields. So again, not the highest quality troops. You can see that for the most part, the good armor, good weapons are going to be reserved for the cavalry, as you would expect for the Eotheod, a name which essentially means horse people. But we do have some capability here, and some of your strongest melee infantry troops are these mountain axemen. These are kind of a nod to the Bjornings, or proto-Bjornings, if you will. One of the backstories for Bjorn's people is that they hailed from the mountains, the Misty Mountains, where they were driven out by potentially men of Angmar or orcs. And so we thought it would be a nice nod to that, to have these well-armed, two-handed axe guys making up an elite part of the infantry of the Eotheod, sort of joining forces with the folk of Rhovanion who flooded into the Anduin and taking up arms with them. You also get a couple of other fairly elite infantry units if you expand to other places. So the Framsburg Guard are these sword units, very good armor, sword and shield. Probably going to change the name on these guys. I believe Fram, that's a much later name, and so Framsburg won't be Framsburg in the mod. You're gonna have to come up with some other name for it. But we do know that Angmar did have territory on the eastern side of the Misty Mountains, and so because of that, you're going to have to actually fight them before you can take that land around the sources of the Anduin River. So if you do, your reward will be some very staunch infantry fellows for your battle, and another infantry unit you can get by expanding is Shields of Rhovanion, and these guys are very elite spear troops, shields, good armor, and throwing spears as well. For the rest, we will unpause the battle and we'll take a look here as, again, the Western Horde is approaching. You do get some horse archers. These are a higher tier cavalry unit. As we can see, they have some scale armor, and they're going to be quite good in the cav archer role. They do have the ability to get into melee where they wield swords, but again, the lack of shields and the relatively small unit size is going to mean that you're not going to want to get them into too many fights that way. We have some other skirmish cav as well. And so the Eotheod are going to be, I think, a pretty micro-intensive faction on the battlefield. The Eotheod nobles are your higher armed skirmish cav. They've got javelins and they've got spears for melee. And a similar version are these Eotheod riders. These are going to be available at lower tiers, and they will probably form, to some extent, the bread and butter of the Eotheod. Javelins, as we can see, and spears, but less well-equipped, shall we say. Although they do have slightly larger unit sizes, and so that's going to stand them in good stead. Here we're skirmishing away from the cavalry and archers of the enemy. Pure melee comes next, and so your first tier of cavalry is going to be these Eotheod Outriders, which are spear and shield cavalry, and here we're going to be charging into some step lancers. This fight should go pretty well. Yeah, they rout instantly. They are going to be getting into some trouble potentially with the Wainrider chariots. They're just going to slice through them here, causing a lot of damage. But these guys have very large unit sizes. I think 92 on an undamaged unit. And so that should help them out. But here they are just getting ganged up on by these chariots and these very elite heavy cavalry. Coming to their aid, though, we do have some Eotheod March Wardens and the General's Bodyguard. These guys, as you can tell, are very well-armored, chainmail as well as lances. They do have swords as a melee weapon for backup, and they are going to take out this general and be able to press on. The Lord's Household, if we can get a good look at him, might be a little difficult in the scrum here, but we'll take a look at him later. The Lord's Household unit is an elite lancer as well, but those Eotheod riders, or sorry, the March Wardens, are going to be the more easily available one once you get to the higher tiers of development. They're going to have a larger unit size. These guys, here we go, the Lord's Household. So again, very elite looking unit, good armor, but relatively small unit size. So here what we're trying to do is to engage them in the trees with the infantry, some of whom do get some bonuses to fighting in the woods, and then use the cavalry to sort of surround and pincer some of these units to get them to rout. And so far that's going okay. But we run into a lot of trouble because those chariots are very effective against cavalry, and of course we're leaning pretty heavy on the cav in this battle. And the Wainriders cavalry is also very effective, or at least it can be. And so if you get charged by even their step lancers, that can be a problem for you. The way to deal with these war wains and these other elite chariot units is to get them to stop. And like you can see here, once they stop, they're much easier prey. But if they charge around, if they're moving around, it's not good. So you need to get sort of a numerical superiority, and then you can pretty much run them down. So far that's going pretty well, and actually it looks like we've got most of the army on the run. Easterling Warriors here is a low-tier archer unit for the Wainriders. The fact that we're able to close with them is very good news for us. We've got all of our elite cavalry in one spot, so we can keep up the pressure that way. Over here, they do have a few elite units of their own. The enemy Sworn Champions are going to charge right into the flanks of our Mountain Axemen, which is obviously not ideal. But we do have the armor-piercing effect of these axes, and that is going to allow us to cut down some of these guys in a melee, although ideally, of course, you would want to charge them. I'm microing elsewhere, so the horse archers and other cavalry units are not... my attention is not on them. Now, if you notice any artifacts, any strange sort of visual artifacts, things like that, in the replay here, that is because we haven't quite settled the sprites of some of these units, so such as the chariots, the cavalry, so that's causing some pop-in. This is all stuff that we're going to address before we get to the release, of course. So, at this point, we're just chasing down some of the routers. We do have some horse archers that we're going to be bringing the fight to eventually, and maybe at some point I will come to my senses and realize that there is a fight going on here and I should really pay attention to it. But in any case, this is essentially the fight. So the Eotheod, again, are going to be positioned at the beginning of the mod, right in that the Anduin Vales. So there's only going to have, I think, 1 or 2 settlements under their control at the beginning. And they're going to be under some pressure in the sense that the expansion possibilities for them are a bit limited. So right to the north, you're going to have Angmar, who has that presence to the east of the Misty Mountains, just in that little corner up around Mount Gundabad, essentially, or where Framsburg eventually would be. And to the south, you're going to have some independent settlements, but not too far away. The Wainriders themselves, the Western Horde, will have a presence both south and east of Mirkwood. So there will be the opportunity to, of course, potentially try to maneuver your troops to help your ally Gondor. But you will be under some pressure, not only from Angmar in the north, but from the Wainriders to the east and south. And I think it'll be a fairly challenging campaign in that sense, especially if the unit balance is similar to what we saw here, because the Wainriders were able to give a very good account of themselves indeed. And again, I don't know why this is showing as resolved. I'm quite confident that I actually won the battle. But I guess some units were on the field or something like that. In any case, replays being funny, but I hope this gave you at least a good image of what the Eotheod will look like on the battlefield. And stay tuned to the channel for other updates in the future. We're getting pretty close to the end of the factions, only a few more to go, and then we'll start previewing campaign stuff, which will be very exciting indeed. So follow the channel for more updates. Check us out at TotalWarCenter.net and at Discord. And thank you once again for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.